Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the February Council meeting. This is the Budget Council meeting, which of course is very special and unique because of course it deals with the setting of the budget for 2026-27. Can I say beforehand that I have been notified that there are no amendments to any of the agenda items today. I want to particularly welcome all the councillors that are here, and particularly some that I know that have not been well and have partners who have not been well. And I want to say a special thank you to Councillor Stollard, who, as many of you know, had a triple bypass operation at the beginning of this year and managed to recover and come here today to present the report, despite the fact, of course, that the department gave him probably one of the worst settlements that we've had for a long time. But you're very, very welcome, Peter, to here as well. I remind you also, of course, that filming and photography of this meeting is permitted. If there is anyone that does not wish to be filmed or photographed, please indicate. We have had an indication. Otherwise, that will be done. All your contributions, of course, are timed. I will also remind you that with regard to items 8, 9 and 10, there will be a named vote in accordance with the Constitution. Very well, let's move to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the appointment of Vice Chairperson of the Council. Can I begin by thanking very much the previous Vice Chairman, who has progressed to becoming a group leader. Councillor Simmons has been a tremendous support to me and a great asset to the county in her time as Vice Chairman. Steph, thank you very much for what you did with the dignity that you brought to the role. Always very reliable, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy what you're doing now, but it won't be as nice. It won't be as nice, but thank you very much for all that you've done. And so therefore I would like to, I'm not going to call for nominations, I'm going to propose Councillor Kevin Tillett as the Vice Chairman. Kevin, as you know, has been a long-standing member, not only of this council, but also the City Council. A couple of years ago, he was Mayor of Hereford and gave an excellent response to that duty. And I know that Kevin will be a great asset. I sneakily invited him to come to the last citizenship ceremony, which is one of the duties that you're asked to perform. And I know with his previous D'Oyly Carte experience that he will bring many great assets to the role. And Kevin, therefore, I have great pleasure in proposing you. And Councillor Simmons, could I ask you to second, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, absolutely second that.
Very well. Can I ask for a show of hands for support for that? Yes, vote for yourself, then it's unanimous. Yes, thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Tillett, will you come and join us, please? And you also have to swear the term of office.
I, Kevin Paul Tillett, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairperson of Herefordshire Council, declare that I will take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Congratulations. The next agenda item is item 3, which is declarations of interest. Can I declare that I want to declare non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 10 as chairman of the Rural Services Network, and under agenda item 11 as vice chairman of the National Joint Council for Employers for England and Wales. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Hitchener?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wish to declare that I have a non-registrable interest. I live near where the Southern Relief Road may be built. I'm no different to anyone else in the area. I have a dispensation to speak and take part in all meetings that discuss this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Can I just quickly go back. I need a vice chairman because obviously I'm getting hopeless at this. I've received apologies from absences for Councillors Baker, Councillor Robert Williams and Councillor Dan Powell. No other apologies, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 5th of December 2025, pages 11 to 30. No matters of accuracy have been notified. Is it your agreement that we sign off those minutes? All approved? Yep. Any against? No. Very well. That is approved. Agenda item 5 is the Chairman and Chief Executive's announcement. On my behalf, can I particularly mention the Children's Services? I know this is going to be a council meeting that's very much focused, and rightly so, on setting the budget. But I do think this is the first time we have met since the council has received the good standing of Ofsted. And I wouldn't want the opportunity to go and be forgotten. It is a very complex area, and one can never be overconfident in this area, but I think the degree of progress that's made has been tremendous, and I thank all those that have worked hard in that department and with partners, and particularly to Tina Russell and her team, but also to Councillors Powell, Lester and Fagan for the work that they have done in this as well, and I want to formally record that. Thank you. I have nothing else to add. Chief Executive, do you have anything else to add to your report?
Just one item, please, Chairman, if you would indulge me, please. The final paragraph of my report takes the opportunity to congratulate you, and I think it's only appropriate. This is the first meeting of the Council since you were awarded the OBE, the New Year's Honour, and I think it's just right to take a moment to recognise across this Council the fantastic contribution you've made to the Council over the years, your contribution and work to residents and support of residents, and the fact, you know, this role model that you display as a leader in civic leadership, taking account of the needs of your community and balancing those off with the ambitions of the council and your work outside of the council. Many people ask, how does he find the time? Where do all the hours come from? Because, you know, you're a busy guy, you're on the detail all the time, but you always take time to have a word, to take notice of people. And I know for one that you are very well liked and very well respected across this council. And I want to offer my congratulations on your OBE on behalf of everyone here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I've been very fortunate to work with some very wonderful people and teams of officers and members, both inside the county and outside. And I feel it's a reflection of those that I've worked with as well. Thank you. Nothing else to add? No, very well. Let us move on then to item 6, which is questions from members of the public. The first question is from Mr. Fisher, and I understand there is no supporting question? No supplementary question. Very well. Mrs. Morawiecka, there is a written supplement, I understand.
Yes, Chairman. The supplementary question is, the Cabinet agreed an initial spend of 10.3 million. So with the Council approving a further 13 million capital spend in 2026-27 for the Southern Link Road, it seems they can approve up to 23.3 million with no full business case or any evidence to show this will deliver the traffic benefits claimed for the full bypass scheme. Please answer my initial question, which asked, how much expense or contractual commitment can be incurred by the Cabinet, binding on the Hereford taxpayer, before there is any full business case, or whether this investment offers value for money for the residents of Herefordshire. Thank you.
Cabinet member.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Morawiecka, for your supplementary question. Cabinet has authorised the use of £10.3 million for the development of the scheme. Cabinet will consider the full business case ahead of making the decision to authorise the award of the construction contract and use of the capital budget for construction. Yeah.
Thank you. Question 3 is Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne is here. and he will ask his supplementary question in person. Mr. Mill.
You failed to answer my substantive question, which sought only a sum, namely the total unrecovered value on liability property cases going back over 2 years. Privately owned eyesore Jacobs Court is one example, and here we are owed more than £80,000 on a botched planning case unresolved for 15 years. Crumbling and long-closed council-owned lavatory blocks at St Peter's Square and East Street, also in my ward, are another. The listed timber barns at Newhouse Almley, left decaying following the folly of this administration's treatment of the county farmed estate years ago, a third. No public benefit in any of this, just a waste. I ask for a breakdown identifying these costs, showing which are recoverable and which are sunk or lost, and how would these impact relevant budgets beneficially or adversely as these matters are addressed.
Thank you. Cabinet Member?
Thank you, Mr. Milne. The exact figures will have to come to you in a written response. You're right. After 15 years, though, it's I'm pleased to say that meetings this week look as if they are going to resolve the Jacobs Court issue, with works commencing this summer. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Mrs. Prothero, and I understand there is a written supplementary.
Thank you. It is disappointing that this administration has done no impact assessment on the 30-minute free parking Pop to Shop initiative versus other possible measures to support the local economy. In this same budget, the council is looking to spend over 45 million on a road they claim will reduce congestion in the centre of Hereford, where the major cause is motorists driving short distances in and out of the city. How much will the 30-minute free parking increase frequent, short car trips in and out of Hereford, increasing the city congestion versus offering free bus travel or extending student bus passes to include free weekend and evening use? Thank you.
Cabinet Member.
Thank you, Mrs. Prothero, for your supplementary question. What you asked is a detailed question, so rather than mislead you, I want to make sure it is correct. I will provide you with a written response. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, from Mr. Newman, with regard to transport and infrastructure, there is also a written supplementary.
Thank you. I am sorry, the answer must relate to a different question. When the benefits of the full Western Relief Road are excluded from the outline business case for the Hereford Southern Link Road, what are the direct and quantifiable benefits that will be delivered by spending over 45 million on the Southern Link Road scheme as a standalone road project? Thank you.
Cabinet Member.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Phase 1 of the Western Bypass will deliver a number of transportation, economic, social and environmental benefits which are driving a positive benefit-cost ratio. These will be outlined in detail within the business case, which will be published in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to item 7, which is questions from members of council. Councillor Harvey has a question on sale of assets. Councillor Harvey, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for his answer to my question, but I can't because he didn't actually answer it. The Cabinet Member must have some properties already in mind to sell, because a figure of 5 million is included in the budget before us, representing expected capital receipts within the coming financial year. These must already be in train, given the glacial pace at which such things seem to proceed in the Council. I asked about value for money criteria because the Cabinet Member doesn't have a great track record on such matters. Twice development options he's championed for the Bromyard Depot have now been found incapable of delivery, and twice his plans to develop land holdings in the Edgar Street grid area have been halted because they were financially unviable. Whatever the criteria he has been happy to apply to date for handling publicly owned assets, these have been demonstrated to fall short of what is acceptable and appropriate. So I ask again, which publicly owned properties does the Cabinet member propose to sell to generate 5 million of capital receipts in the coming financial year? And what are the value criteria that he intends to use to identify these divestments?
Councillor Bramer.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Harvey. I would repeat the third paragraph of my response to you for your first question, and that no specific sites have yet been identified for disposal, and the review is underway. Other than that, I will send you a written response after this meeting.
Thank you. There are no other questions. We'll now move on to agenda item 8, which is the 2026-27 Council Tax Reduction Scheme. And this is outlined to you from pages 37 to pages 182. I will invite the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services to introduce and move the report. Councillor Stollard.
Thank you, Chair. My fellow councillors, the report before you today recommends that the Council Tax Reduction Scheme continues to be maintained at the maximum level in financial year 2026-27. This means that eligible households will receive the maximum level of discount for a further year. Council tax charges can be reduced if the bill payer meets certain set criteria contained in the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, which is available to working age and pensioner claimants. The Pensioner Council Tax Reduction Scheme is set nationally. However, the Working Age Council Tax Reduction Scheme is set locally by Herefordshire Council. Within Herefordshire, there are more than 11,000 bill payers who are currently in receipt of council tax reduction, with over 6,000 claims from working age applicants. The existing local working age CTR scheme was approved by Council in February 2025 and is included in the document at Appendix 1, with the maximum discount maintained in 2026-27 to mirror those available to pensioner cases. This means that a 100% discount is awarded under CTR unless their income breaches the threshold, irrespective of the council tax band that the property falls into. This administration listens to members of the public, and during the public budget consultation, which took place during November and December 2025, the results report clear support for continuing discount for council tax for those most in need, with support from the majority of respondents. Whilst no changes are proposed for 26-27, the responses of the survey will support improvements and will inform plans to increase participation in future rounds of consultation. Subsequently, we have brought forward this report to continue to provide this support to those individuals who require it. I would, however, also like to highlight that in addition to the CTR scheme, the Council also provides other discounts, and these are listed on the Council's website, and this includes the hardship scheme for those individuals who narrowly miss the criteria for the CTR scheme. Maintaining the maximum discount in 26-27 will have a positive impact on the community by minimising the debt burden on residents who struggle to pay their council tax charge. I'm therefore very pleased to endorse this report and propose that it is approved today by Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stollard. Leader of the Council, you can second the report. Do you need to speak now or later?
I'll speak later, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this particular motion? I know that it's been passed about. Councillor Simmons and anyone else? Just Councillor Simmons? Councillor Harvey? Councillor Simmons, Harvey, and then I will call and Councillor James. Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. Given the maximum increase in council tax being proposed today, Greens fully support the CTR scheme to ensure those most in need in our county continue to receive this vital support. However, with continued above inflation rises in council tax that will be necessary for the settlement period, we fully understand that more households will become eligible potentially under the CTR scheme, but that many will fall outside the CTR scheme and significantly struggle with the cost of living. It is vital council tax is collected, and we support enforcement of collection where people are simply unwilling to pay. But in previous years, in addition to the CTR, we, as has been said by Councillor Stoddart, we have the Council Tax Discretionary Hardship Fund, which is vital to assist. But we've also had the Household Support Fund. Now, this finishes in March. I know that there are further schemes coming, but they are not structured in the same way, and that source of support will no longer be there from the end of this financial year. So we have deep concerns as a group about the number of residents struggling that fall outside of the CTR scheme and how we're going to be able to support them in the way that we have in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Independents for Herefordshire, we support the points that have been raised by the Greens, both in terms of supporting this as a continuing scheme and also the concerns about some of the schemes that support people who fall just outside of it not continuing and maybe not being funded at the level that they have been in the past. However, what I'd like to really concentrate on is that it's clear from the most recent responses given to the budget consultation and actually set out in the covering report for this agenda item that unlike previous years, this year a slightly greater proportion of the respondents to the consultation, albeit a very small number in total, were against the scheme continuing at the level of discount. That means that these households make no contribution whatsoever towards the services that this council provides. 38% were in favour, 41% disagreed. I'm a little concerned that the cabinet member seems to be misreading this, and I find it a concerning trend because this is the first year that respondents to the budget consultation have not, in the majority, supported the continuation of this scheme. Now, the likelihood is that the majority of people responding to our budget consultation will be council taxpayers, and it's been gratifying over the years to see the level of support from people who do qualify to pay council tax for the 100% discount for people in most serious hardship situations in the county. And it isn't particularly easy to qualify for the 100% discount. So if you do, you really do need it. But I think this is a tipping point that we're seeing here, and I really do urge both greater engagement to be generated in the budget consultation and for it to be more demographically representative of the county's makeup, so that we can actually consider it as being statistically significant when we make decisions.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Yeah, thank you. I broadly agree with what all that's been said initially, but I think we need to congratulate ourselves that over the years this council has maintained a slightly more generous scheme than some councils do in the country. You know, there are always people who just don't quite meet the criteria for responding, and that is increasingly worried with the council tax going up above the rate of inflation. But I mean, there was unfortunately a ridiculous letter to the press last year, so lambasting all the members of this council for unanimously voting this scheme in. It's totally misunderstanding what it was about and the scheme and how the scheme operates. So I do wish that, you know, unfortunately I don't think it was responded to, but, you know, I'm glad that this council is united in supporting this particular
Thank you,
policy.
Councillor James. I've got nobody else indicating, so I'm going to go back to the Leader of the Council and then I'll go back to the proposer. Councillor Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the reduction scheme is essential to those people who find that meeting the demands of the costs is a challenge. It is a rigorous process, but it is help where it is necessary and much needed. So I think it is really important that we have this in place. It's not the only provision. We have the hardship fund as well. And I think that it was right to increase it to 100% back in 2021. Supported it in opposition, supported it all the way through this administration, and I think it should continue. I respect those who the views of those who do not think it should be here, but it really is to meet the needs of those who are struggling to pay the council tax rises, and it is right that it should remain in place at 100%. So I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Stollard.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back again to some of those comments, it is a priority for our administration to support vulnerable households. Unfortunately, of the total of 359 respondents, we don't know who they are, and some may feel, as Councillor Harvey suggested, that they're getting a free ride. But however, we are very concerned that we can support as many residents as possible. I'd also respond to Councillor Simmons as well. The HSF has been replaced by the Crisis Resilience Fund. I met with the head of Top Community this week, and she's explained to me in detail how that will run. There'll be slightly less funding available, and part of that is we will not be giving as valuable contribution to free school meals, because that will be coming through something else, which will enable us to do something work more with this funding. But it's again, I would draw the attention to the title. It's crisis and resilience, not household support. But what we intend doing with CRF will be coming out in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The recommendation is before you that the council tax reduction scheme for 2026-27 with the same parameters as the existing scheme be approved. This will be a named vote. We will begin at A on this occasion, just to keep you on your toes, and I will call on the monitoring officer to read out your name, and please state clearly whether you're for, against or abstaining.
Thank you. Councillor Andrews. For. Councillor Bartlett.
For.
Councillor Bartram. Councillor Biggs. For. Councillor Bolter. For. Councillor Bramer. For. Councillor Carwardine. For. Councillor Cole. For. Councillor Corthwaite. For. Councillor Crockett. For. Councillor Claire Davis. For. Councillor Dave Davis. For. Councillor Durkin. For. Councillor Dykes. For. Councillor Engel. For. Councillor Fagan. For. Councillor Foxton. For. Councillor Gandy. For. Councillor Jennard. For. Councillor Hamblin. For. Councillor Harvey. For. Councillor Heathfield. For. Councillor Highfield. For. Councillor Hitchner. For. Councillor Hercombe. For. Councillor James. For. Councillor Kenyon. For. Councillor Lester. For. Councillor Mason. For. Councillor O'Driscoll. For. Councillor Oliver. For. Councillor Owens. For. Councillor Pebbody. For. Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Ivan Powell. For. Councillor Price. For. Councillor Proctor. For. Councillor Simmons. For. Councillor Spencer. For. Councillor Stark. For. Councillor Stoddard. For. Councillor Stone. For. Councillor Swinglehurst. For. Councillor Taylor. For. Councillor Thomas. For. Councillor Tillett.
For.
Councillor Toynbee. For. Councillor Tully. For. Councillor Alan Williams. For. Councillor Woodall.
For. Thank you for that. That is unanimously passed. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 9, which is the 2026-27 capital investment budget and capital strategy update. And this is before you in your papers from pages 183 to 266. I would also remind you, of course, of the 151 Officers Section 25 statement published on the 10th of February and the Budget Council meeting procedures of 2026 published on the 6th of February. I will invite the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services to introduce and move the report. Councillor Stollard.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks to recommend to Council the final version of the 26-27 capital investment budget together with the capital strategy for 26-27 onwards. The capital programme reflects capital investment which generates benefit to the county for a period in excess of 1 year. I would like to remind you all that inclusion in the capital programme is not approval to proceed and that each project will be subject to its own governance. A full business case will be presented for approval where required and in full compliance with the Council's contract procedure rules as applicable. The proposed capital programme for 2026-27 presents an ambitious programme of capital investment which is aligned to the priorities of the Council plan across the themes of people, place, growth and transformation. The widespread consultation from November to December shows strong support from residents across the key areas of the proposed additions to the capital programme, namely that respondents were not comfortable with reductions in highway maintenance and street lighting, and this support was also reflected in respondents' views on which single service they would prioritise if they only had £1 left to spend, with highways maintenance and street lighting the most common choice. I would also like to highlight that SMB at their meeting of 23 January 26 had a thorough and detailed look at the proposed capital programme, and their recommendations from that meeting did not include any comments on this capital programme. The public consultation therefore supports the proposed additions for the 2026-27 capital programme, which will deliver increased temporary and emergency accommodation to respond to homelessness and housing demand across the county. This is the largest addition to the programme at £10 million and demonstrates this administration's commitment to address this significant issue. It will also mitigate key revenue budget pressures through alternate school provision and pupil referral units, improve the use of technology to deliver efficiencies and innovation in services to residents, deliver new infrastructure to support growth opportunities for housing, strengthen resilience of our schools and property assets, improve public rights of way access, and provide continued investment in the county's road network. All proposals are included in Appendix A, along with outlined strategic business cases at Appendix E. Appendix A provides details of the proposed additions to the existing capital programme that have been identified and the impact of approving these additions. 14 capital investment budget proposals totalling £44 million have been identified to be funded by prudential borrowing, capital receipts reserves and revenue reserves. I would like to take the opportunity to remind everyone of the difference in capital funding, where in completion of the project, Herefordshire Council will own an asset that has value as against revenue, where there is no asset, only a service. Responding to housing needs across the county remains a high priority for this administration. A further provision of £10 million has been added to the capital programme to bring forward schemes to deliver housing to meet the council's urgent need for provision, provide better homes for those in need, and reduce the high cost dependence on temporary accommodation. The funding is based on borrowing, which is repaid through the income from housing benefit and the reduced cost of temporary accommodation, along with applications for Homes England grants and some provision of corporate funded borrowing where required. And this will have a positive impact by reducing our future revenue costs by approximately £1.7 million per annum. From April 20 to March 25, this Council's Strategic Housing Team has supported the delivery of 1,298 homes, with a further 193 homes delivered so far in 25-26. We are also fully committed to identifying solutions to develop affordable housing, and work is underway to review best practice options through engagement with developers and registered providers. An historic building fund of £5 million has been added to fund future works to preserve and restore historic buildings in Hereford, including the Museum and Art Gallery, Shire Hall and Town Hall. And the approved capital programme includes an existing allocation of £0.75 million to fund Council Hall improvements. This historic building fund will be held centrally and is delegated to the 151 officer to allocate funds to specific project budgets once final contract prices have been received to carry out the work required. An informal review of all prospective capital funding requests has been completed to ensure the financial impact of the funding requests has been taken into account in the medium-term financial strategy. Concurrently, a review of the current capital programme has taken place, and it was agreed to remove a number of projects that were no longer needed or where alternate funding has been identified to release borrowing and capital receipts for utilisation within the new bids. The projects that have been removed from the proposed capital programme are identified at para 13. The capital strategy, which forms Appendix D of the report, has been developed in accordance with SIPFA guidelines, and the purpose of the capital strategy is to give a clear and concise view of how Herefordshire Council determines its priorities for capital investment, decides how much it can afford to borrow, and sets its risk appetite. In conclusion, I fully endorse this report and strongly believe that this ambitious capital programme will deliver on this administration's commitment to the people of Herefordshire, whilst being clearly aligned with the council plan and its vision of delivering the best for Herefordshire and everything we do. I have no hesitation on commending its 3 recommendations to council for their approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stollard. The leader has informed me that he will speak later in the debate. I'm now looking for participants in the debate. Councillor Simmons, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Heathfield, Highfield, Councillor Proctor, sorry, Councillor Stark, Councillor Peverdy, and okay, hang on a minute. Well, I've got enough for a moment. We'll get down to those. So I've got Simmons, Harvey, and Highfield. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. There are some very positive elements of the capital budget and its additions, including prudential borrowing for strategic housing accommodation, alternative education provision and pupil referral units, which we very much support. These will help to reduce the escalating revenue costs in these areas and help those most in need in our county. This sort of action is vital, and as I said, we fully support these. However, and you would expect this, decisions on where cuts have to be made in the revenue budget for the next financial year and beyond have been made all the harder by this Conservative administration's insistence on pushing on with these capital projects, despite comments made at Scrutiny Management Board. Councillors are being asked today to approve a capital budget that includes a further £5 million in loans for the Southern Link Road. This 2-mile stretch of road from the A49 at Grafton to the A465 at Belmont is now estimated to cost a whopping £45.3 million, landing entirely on Herefordshire taxpayers' shoulders for the next 40 years. And we still don't have a full business case or transport modelling data to demonstrate whether this is actually value for money or will achieve the benefits claimed. I'll let you into a secret. It isn't and it won't. Contrary to your assertions, there has never been funding for a full Western bypass. Let me be clear, your planning permission for a Southern Link Road is not a bypass. You should be honest with residents that this road and spend will not deliver them a river crossing or noticeable improvements in the centre of Hereford. No government will fund the bypass in the current financial climate, not least because we haven't done the basic lower cost interventions first, including the Park and Choose site languishing unfinished at Homer. Instead, the need to repay the loan for the SLR from council tax revenue means that further cuts have to be made, or there is less ability to fund things that will actually make a difference to people everywhere in Herefordshire, but particularly our young people. In summary, I maintain my view stated at Cabinet last week that the capital budget is like a curate's egg, good in parts, said while being forced to swallow the truly unpalatable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot of good stuff in the capital programme that is important to start or to continue and, as importantly, to deliver to time and at or under budget. I continue to have grave concerns about the local funding being committed to the new road projects, but that battle will be fought at another time and possibly ultimately in the courts. I remain concerned that the £5 million being inserted into the programme for heritage buildings in the city is insufficient to meet even half the understood cost of making good on your bold promises to bring the Shire Hall back to its former glory after your penny pinching brought about its all but collapse, let alone the works needed to the other buildings listed. Of more immediate concern is the removal of £4 million from the capital line to support economic development in the market towns, when, as far as published decisions demonstrate, this funding is fully committed, with £8 million promised to the model farm development in Ross, £3 million on the development of the Bromyard depot, and £500k of the council on the council's Buttercross acquisition in Leominster. Yesterday, councillors were all advised by email that the Bromyard depot development is no longer going ahead, which is a pity for Bromyard, as it has had its allocated employment land flipped for housing development by this council, leaving the community without sustainable options to grow jobs alongside housing for the future. It's also a pity that for everyone else, as this decision has not been published sooner, and possibly goes some way to explaining why no businesses or landowners in the market towns have bothered to come forward with suggested projects. As until today, it appeared that no money was available, and today's council is being asked to take away what money is actually there. Due to the timing of the officer clarification on this investment line, I have been prevented from proposing an amendment to retain the £4 million in the, for market towns in the capital programme. I can't say that this is the openness and transparency that we are told we should expect from this administration, and does not reflect the promises made to deliver better economic growth and support to all the market towns. Perhaps the Cabinet Member for Assets would like to comment.
Thank you. Councillor Highfield.
It is a challenge to meet some of the financial restrictions that have been placed upon us, and I think it's very creative and imaginative. And Councillor Simmons noted that there were some very good items in there that meet those challenges. But our capital programme is not just in order to meet challenges and put out fires. It is an investment in the county. It's an investment in our people. And what she insists on calling the Southern Link Road is in fact phase 1 of the bypass, and is named by everybody as such, and will be part of a western bypass that will go all the way around the city to avoid 11 sets of traffic lights and 6 roundabouts on the A49, which I don't think any city in the country has its roads going through the city like that, with the pollution and stress that causes to the city. So the investment in our future is what this is all about, in addition with the straightforward dealing with current issues. So I commend that programme that is being proposed very strongly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm now going to come to Councillor Proctor, Councillor Stark, Councillor Pemberley, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Engel, O'Driscoll, Thomas, and I've got Councillor James to speak as well. And very well, yeah. So let's go to Councillor Proctor, then Stark, then Pemberley.
Thank you. I also think there's lots of good stuff in this capital programme. I'm particularly pleased to see investment in alternative provision and the relocation of the PRUs. I particularly welcome the investment in strategic and emergency housing. This will both provide a better experience for people who are experiencing temporary housing, and the experience that many people have at the moment is really horrifying. Not a fault of the officers, just if you're put into a chain hotel and have to move every day, because that's how absolutely I support this investment that will help there, and it will reduce cost. And it's very pleasing to see that the administration has responded to the initiatives to use the capital programme to try and reduce pressures in the revenue budget. But this strategic and emergency housing investment will not significantly reduce the risk of people becoming homeless. And the reason that most people become homeless in this county is because we do not have enough social housing and enough affordable housing of different tenures. And it probably won't surprise many members that I was looking for a substantial investment in that in the capital programme, and we don't have it. The administration may say that the revenue consequences of doing that were very significant. They may say that they have a new approach. Councillor Studder has just told us that they will be reviewing best practice, which may come as a surprise to the Connected Communities Scrutiny Committee, which has been reviewing best practice and has come forward with recommendations some time ago. I accept that a capital project wouldn't be the only way to deliver a substantial increase in social and affordable housing. But I'm not persuaded that the administration has a plan outside of using the capital programme. And therefore, I don't think that this capital programme is equal to the moment, and I will not be able to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Stark.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to read the first sentence of the executive summary of the capital strategy. An effective capital strategy is vital to ensure that the capital and revenue expenditure on the asset portfolio is directed efficiently, effectively to support service delivery in line with Herefordshires priorities. Well, I look at this 44 million additions, and I don't know whether I can answer that, to be honest. I mean, that's the problem I've got with this, is the lack of a strategic context. Take housing, for example. I mean, everyone around this room, and certainly my group, supports fully putting capital investment into housing. But I can't say with this 10 million programme that's put before us as part of the 44 million additional programmes, is the right programme. There's a lack of a strategic context there. I mean, discussions I've had with some of the Cabinet, I have talked about a continuum of support being required here, from when people are homeless through to temporary accommodation, through to social housing, through to affordable housing, and eventually what we would like them to do is to go on to become fully sustainable in terms of being able to afford a market value house. And so we've got this 10 million, which I welcome, but I can't answer that question where that's the 10 million that should have been before us today. And that's one of the problems I've got with this. I will mention the 5 million additional funding for the bypass. My group supports the bypass, so I'm not criticising that. What I don't know is where this came from and why it came at this stage. And again, it's this lack, I think, of engagement with members when it comes to capital programme development. And one of the things I would like to ask that this council to consider and the Cabinet consider is whether we do engage enough of the county on our proposals for our capital investment as a council. Whether we engage enough with town councils, whether we engage enough with parishes, whether we even engage enough with those that might have suggestions to make. Because this capital programme is not just for us to decide, it's for us to make sure that the residents believe that the priorities that we have set out are actually being met in the investments we are making. So today, unfortunately, although I am happy with a lot of what is in the additions to the capital programme, I will be abstaining on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Beverley.
Thank you. As chair of the Local Access Forum, I'm really happy to see £1 million in the capital programme for vital infrastructure repairs on the public rights-of-way network. Thank you very much. There are 84 bridges out of repair, and the cost of repair can be in the region of about £20,000, so it's unlikely to stretch quite far enough. We've seen how bridge repairs can be delivered at a fraction of this cost through collaboration with our amazing volunteer organisations. Will the leader commit to working with our volunteers and within the new public realm contract to finding cheaper ways of delivering these repairs?
Thank you. Now I've got Councillor Engel, Councillor Driscoll, Councillor Thomas. Then I've got Councillor James, Councillor Hitchener and Councillor Tully. Have I got anybody else? Swinford and Davis and Hercombe and Kenyon. I'll pause there and let us catch up. Councillor Engel.
Thank you, Chairman. I will come to the capital budget in due course, but I need to give you some context. On Tuesday night, I attended a parish council meeting which brought forth the subject of potholes. I tried to get through my familiar spiel. Over the last 20 years, Herefordshire has been roughed up by all three traditional main parties. That the weather has been extreme, that our contractors are serving their notice, but everyone's trying their best. And that I am an opposition backbencher with even less authority here than I do at home. But the parish councillors didn't want any of that. They demanded action. They were fed up with punctures. They were fed up with bodged repairs that never survive a winter. They were fed up with excuses. By the end of the session, with people I knew, I thought I'd done 10 rounds with the tramp. I've got 2 more parishes to do next week, and I might hire a bodyguard. Possibly I could look at Councillor Price's diary. If I can get there to these meetings, because my route to both involves some corking crevices to negotiate. I discovered one last night on a busy road where it is only possible now to be crossed by bicycle. This, I am sure, is being repeated across rural Herefordshire and elsewhere too. But I think now the pothole reporting system is too complex and generally too unresponsive, and that something to match the improvement in dealing with the flood crisis which has been achieved in this past year ought to be introduced into this area too. How is that going to be financed? Well, I have a suggestion. Our leaders are determined to build the road to nowhere, one that will have no effect whatever on Hereford's traffic, as has been pointed out many, many times, one without a business case and not a hope of finding a river crossing till long after most of us are gone. I am now sure that what the people of Herefordshire really want in this rural county, first and foremost, is not to have new roads, but to have the existing ones fit for a first world country and not full of Congolese jungle tracks.
Thank you. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chair. I have a lot of sympathy with Councillor Engels' position there, but I don't see why we can't have both. While I also acknowledge that there are many important projects included within this capital budget, I'm afraid I find myself deeply torn on whether I should support it. Not because of what it contains, but because of what it omits. As Councillor Proctor said, for more than 2 years I've been closely involved through the Scrutiny Committee and also through Cross-Party Housing Working Group in examining how we tackle the acute shortage of social and affordable housing across the county. As you all know, we commissioned independent expert advice on housing delivery, and that report was clear in its recommendation: establish an external housing delivery company to provide the focus, expertise and commercial agility needed to accelerate supply. Instead, the decision has been taken to retain control entirely in-house. I have to say, as I'm sure you're aware, I find this deeply concerning. Our historic reliance on joint ventures has not delivered at the scale required. We're facing a severe and growing housing need, and incremental approaches will not meet it. We've seen for ourselves that other authorities are successfully operating external delivery vehicles, as we observed during our visit to Telford and Wrekin last year. And in so doing it that way, it creates momentum, unlocks borrowing capacity, and the ability to build at pace. This capital budget does not contain the level of commitment or structural change necessary to put firm foundations under a serious social housing programme. Without meaningful capital investment and without adopting a delivery model designed for scale, we're postponing rather than solving the problem. For those reasons, I'm afraid I cannot lend my support to this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas. All right. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. It took one member to mention the curate's egg at the beginning of the moment. It always happens, you know. It's that stock trait. There's so much in it that I think we all support, and some that we're concerned about. And Councillor Driscoll just said about the concerns about housing, and part of that is, I think, the way in which the executive have not consulted with those that have been following this more closely than the rest of the council, and that's unforgivable. But as far as the capital programme on the whole, and there is so much in it that is necessary and important, that I feel we have to support it, reluctantly in some areas, but not in others. It's always the concern about the link road. It's always the concern. We hear the same arguments against the road. It will do nothing. But tell that to the people of Hereford. It's overwhelmingly supported by the people in Hereford. Overwhelmingly. If you had a vote, you would have it tomorrow. We've had a private poll done, and it's well up towards the 80–90% of people want a bypass, want a link road. You are deluding yourself if you think any other. If you go on social media, You've got the usual suspects who constantly write letters against it. But it's not that. It's the public that want it. Why do you think the Conservatives did better in the last election? About the only council that actually went up in seats, not down. So please get your head round this. The Greens are supporting and advocating a link road in Leominster, but are voting against it in Hereford. Yeah. What have they got against Hereford? Please, get your act together.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Hitchener.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I am supportive of some aspects of the capital budget, I do have concerns. Paragraph 7 of the report, page 184, refers to criteria that projects should meet, most of which I agree with, and especially the need to invest in SAVE, such as investment in housing, improving the use of technology, schools and pupil referral units. What I cannot understand is how a further investment of £5 million in historic buildings fits with these criteria. The table on page 181 refers to this being financed by way of return on investment, which I had assumed means a return on the £5 million being spent. But no, the strategic business case on page 264 refers to £5 million being based on borrowing to be repaid through additional income generated through wider council property asset income. Which is it, please? Return on investment or borrowing? And how does this fit with Councillor Bramer's plans to sell £5 million of assets? I look forward to seeing the full business case, which I trust will be provided before any money is spent on this. You will not be surprised that I do not support the spending on the Southern Relief Road. It will not deliver what residents need and expect. Residents expect a road that will reduce congestion in the city. This project does not do that. The outlined business case continues to use that argument with no justification. The city badly needs a second river crossing. Again, this project does not deliver that. The plans worked on by the previous administration for an eastern crossing would have delivered both, at a cost more than we had expected, but still probably 1/3 of the cost of a complete bypass to the west, if that is ever delivered, and a period much quicker than a western bypass. The administration continues to spend millions of pounds of taxpayer money on a project which does not have a business case. A business case is promised, which is sure to justify the spending. It will be worded to justify the project, and facts and criteria will be selected to justify it. It is unlikely to be subject to very much scrutiny and be approved because it will have the support of both the current administration and their partners to support promises they made at the last election. The incurring of further expenditure should surely wait until a full business case is available. If this results in a delay of the project, so be it. Better to properly evaluate the project against the facts rather than make statements of opinion. Some say that we should go ahead because everyone else has one, and others that we have waited so long, so just get on with it. Just because everyone has one is not a good fact-based argument. And as far as just get on with it is concerned, look at where we are as a result of Brexit. I am concerned too about the rapid increase in borrowings of £148 million, most of which is to be incurred up to March 2028. Is it prudent to take on such debt at this time and so quickly? Future administrations and residents will bear the cost. Are councillors satisfied that the pace of spending is appropriate? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask Councillor Tully, and then after that, Councillor Swindlehurst, Councillor Dave Davis, Councillor Hercombe, and then Councillor Kenyon. Thank you. Yep. And then I'm going to... Yep. And then I'm going to, after you, I'm then going to go back to the leader, and then I'm going to round up the debate then, if that's all right with everyone. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Chair. We're making a decision here with a backdrop of 16 years of cut after cut for local councils. It started with austerity, but it's not ended in 16 years. And these national cuts to local councils have been orchestrated by 3 different parties. That's what is making this all so very, very hard. This can't be stated enough. It colours every decision we are making. I'm happy to see the expenditure that's aimed to reduce revenue in coming years, whilst Also, I hope making people's lives easier and providing better homes for a number of Herefordshire residents. This is so needed. What I find impossible to comprehend is further borrowing for a 2-mile stretch of road with no business case. This is already making revenue budget choices even harder. The impact of this one road's loans on our revenue budget looks something like, and my maths isn't great, 30,000 potholes a year, every year for as long as we're paying it back. Think what a wide range of roads around the county this could serve. Residents in Hereford want to see an end to congestion. Residents in Herefordshire are not a homogenous group. They want many things, one of which is their existing roads to function. A few years ago, this decision to me felt pretty unfathomable. In this current difficult context, it seems fiscally irresponsible.
Thank you. Councillor Swindlehurst.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to start by correcting what might have been an erroneous impression created that we have only one park and choose site in Holmer. That's in fact one of 15 park and choose sites which were instigated around about 2013, and the last administration put a great deal of effort into promoting and improving those sites. So please, let's not just think with us just the one of them. The 151 officer often remarks that we can do anything but we can't do everything. This is about choices. The proposed capital budget invests in the future of the county and mitigates the pressures on the revenue budget. I welcome the spend on temporary and emergency accommodation provision, which will not only meet a growing need, but do so in a way that is more cost efficient and better for the service user. So not only meets the need, but it will reduce costs, saving around about 1.7 million per annum. The investment in alternative provision and the PRU is critical, and it shows that even if the government is pulling funding from our young people with their shameful withdrawal of the funding for the SEN school, Herefordshire Council is investing in their future. Again, this is something that will improve outcomes, but it will also reduce costs. The current cost of those children, 60 children that are having to travel out of county, which is not good for them, around about £75,000 per child. The cost of that provision in county, £17,000 per child, and it's better for the children. The focus on capital spend to reduce revenue costs, it seems to me, is just totally sensible, and we're wise to identify the potential in technology to alleviate additional spend. The commitment to our important civic and historic buildings is something I welcome because we owe it to the past and to the future. The public consultation was asked if you only had £1 left to spend, what would you spend it on? And the answer was roads. And we have heard in the debate so far, the issue of potholes is something that our residents feel deeply. I think we all have that in common. And I'm very pleased to see that we're doing what we can in that regard. So for me, a vote against the capital budget is a vote against spending on our roads. It's a vote against spending on the future of our children. It's a vote against meeting the challenge of homelessness, a vote against measures that will reduce cost and increase efficiency, a vote against doing what we can. We can do anything. We can't do everything. It's all about choices. I choose to support this capital budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Davis.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Stollard, for that presentation on the capital budget. And it's well constructed, and I think it's something we need to look at seriously and all of us embrace, due to the fact that the investment in what we have within our county is critical, and we need to spend to save. I think we all need to make sure that the investment for the future is there. There are key elements to it that, and as a complete package, needs to be taken on by all of us. And I think if we don't support it, we are being foolish to our people who look at us to lead them and to drive the future for them. So I support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hercombe.
Thank you, Chair. Much has been made of the investment in housing and the investment in the bypass, and I don't feel I can add anything to that conversation that hasn't already been said. But what I can do is draw attention to the £1 million that Councillor Pebbody mentioned for public rights of way. It's been a long time coming. These bridges haven't just appeared overnight. Some of them have been closed for 7 or 8 years. The Public Rights Way network includes 3 extensive bridges over major rivers, each of which would cost £250,000 or more to replace. And I'm really glad that Cabinet has recognised the need to invest at the right time, and I hope this is the start of a journey and not the sole amount we will receive over the coming years. Councillor Pebley makes a very valid point that it's easy to spend £1 million when every bridge costs £30,000. So we must make sure that we use local suppliers, local contractors, and make sure we get value for money. And I've been assured by the Public Rights of Way team that they will do so. And I look forward to sharing more detail with her in due course. Councillor Engels mentioned the importance of fixing the roads. I know from the public realm briefing, the annual plan briefing yesterday, we've got 6 teams out at the moment repairing 150 potholes a day. But I think we'd all agree that repairing potholes isn't the solution. Resurfacing roads, fixing drainage, fixing the underlying cause of potholes is the solution. And there's been a lack of investment over multiple years. This administration has corrected that. We've put tens of millions of pounds into highways. And yet still we are not seeing the results that all of us would like to see. I hope that the public realm contract, when it begins on the 1st of June, will bring seismic changes and we will start to notice the difference. Not least of all, that I'm glad to say that potholes will finally be repaired by cutting a square out and tarmacking and not just filling the existing hole and hoping for the best. I think that's known as a scoop, isn't it? But you will see changes. At M Group, their bid was exciting. I know the highways team are really excited to see what they can bring to Herefordshire, and I hope that every ward member will play their part in the engagement sessions over the coming weeks and months to make sure that it works for everyone and it's not just a byproduct of this administration. It's one of the reasons I'm really pleased to see that we've committed yet again £5 million for highways resurfacing. Now, the annual plan yesterday broke down exactly what the highways team are proposing to do with this, and I think from memory it was 80 miles of road resurfacing that we will get across the county, and that was 75% of the funding allocated. So there will be more, and I know that there's lots of competing priorities from ward members, and I would urge you all to draw those bad roads to the attention of the highways team, but also to identify the underlying causes where there is drainage issues or anything else. There is investment going in there, and we need to make sure that that's directed in the right way too. Thank you.
Thank you. Now then, to round this debate up, I've got Councillor Kenyon, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Lester, and then I'll call Councillor Stollard. Sorry? Toynbee. Right, you'll come in after Councillor Spencer, and then I'll bring those in. So that's the remaining speakers. Councillor Kenyon.
Thank you, Chairman. There's been plenty of gum bumping going on this morning, so I'll try and keep this nice and short. I'm just looking at the housing, social housing, and what we're spending going forward. I think it's 5.9 million over the next 3 years for emergency accommodation. We don't control housing, as you all know. We just so we're at the back end. At the front end, there's housing associations that do. Now, my question would be, people move into social housing. How often do they actually move out of social housing? Because social housing is about picking people up when they need that help, but no one ever seems to move out of it. So what are we doing to question the social housing providers? Also, I'd like to look at subletting. There's people that get a house from the council, sublet it, and go off and live somewhere else, possibly sunny. So what are we doing to question these housing providers? So if we get at that front end, it saves at the back end. So that's my question I'm going to pose and ask what might be happen there going forward. I think a lot of work's gone into this. I'm more than happy to support it. I've been sitting here for 14 years now. 14 years too long, some might say, but it looks pretty good to me, so I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer.
Overall, there's a lot of positives in this capital budget. There is an urgent need to invest to alleviate the traffic chaos in the city with a bypass. We desperately need to expand our schooling as well and the schooling provision. However, I have concerns about the choice of Ayleston School and the likely impact on more congestion within the city, as well as the other concerns I have on the choice of school. Despite these concerns, I will support this budget.
Thank you. Councillor Toynbee.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to draw colleagues' attention to paragraph 16 of the report. However we vote today, this is not a waving through, it's not a blank cheque as far as the capital programme is concerned. So I'd just like to encourage colleagues to fully engage in the scrutiny process this financial year, whether they're actually members of the committee or not. You know, today isn't the end of it, today is the beginning of it. So please, whether it's housing, borrowing, transport, culture, or anything else, I encourage all colleagues to fully engage in the scrutiny process this financial year, because today is the beginning, not the end. And yeah, the decisions are still to be made. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lester.
I don't think I've got long enough really to tackle all of the comments that were made, but I'll just start by saying to Councillor Toynbee, I think that's an excellent observation, and the whole scrutiny process and the way we implement decisions and the way we need all councillors to apply themselves to the issues at hand is really, really helpful. So I thank her for those comments. I think this capital investment and budget and strategy before us represents a significant piece of work grounded in sound financial management, robust governance, and a clear understanding of the needs of our county. This budget demonstrates above all the responsible planning, the balance of ambition with prudence, and a commitment to ensuring that every pound invested delivers meaningful long-term solutions. The approach to the programme is a coherent and well-structured approach to capital investment over the coming years. It prioritises projects that address some of the most pressing challenges, for example, the shortage of temporary and emergency accommodation. There are many things that we can do, but there are certain things that we must do, and providing temporary accommodation is one of those. There are many ways also of solving the chronic shortage in housing, and we are developing those strategies. There are many ways we can use our capital strengths to deliver on this housing, and we are endeavouring to explore every avenue to make that a reality. With regard to investment in the highways, I understand, Councillor Engel, that you felt beaten up, but just, you know, I think the point is to be armed with the facts and the figures. In 2024-2025, we spent on highways infrastructure £38 million, 25-26, £46.9 million. This is record levels of investment. We've had 9,000 potholes a month. This is the worst time it is for potholes, but we have a strategy and we have a new working practices that are on the horizon. We're dealing with that investment. And as Councillor Hercombe says, the investment in road resurfacing is a huge step forward in maintaining our highways network. It is much appreciated by residents, and I look forward, if this proposal gets approved, to much more road resurfacing, which I am sure residents will be very, very pleased with. The need to build a bypass is absolutely crucial to unlocking Herefordshire's future potential. Herefordshire's fortunes have suffered deeply without one, and this is the first phase that we need to put in place to ensure that we get the prosperity, the sustained prosperity we need, and those homes and jobs that everybody deserves to have. The creation of the Historic Buildings Fund is a very positive step forward to ensure that our historic buildings are going to be invested in. And there are lots of other positives in this capital programme. I would just commit, as I've already committed to Councillor Pebbody, that yes, the Webley model is a great model that was used. I committed to us exploring that, and I endorse that approach and support that fully. And finally, there have been some very positive things said about the capital programme, and I think this is the right way forward, given that we can't do everything, but we can do anything, and we are focused on the things that we must do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I will now call on Councillor Stollard to round up the debate.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to remind everyone that a vote against this capital budget is a vote against investing in our roads. It's a vote against spending on the future of our children. It's a vote against meeting the challenges of homelessness. And it's a vote against the measures that will reduce cost and increase efficiency. Thank you.
And thank you for that. Thank you all very much for that debate. As I've said earlier, we will now go to a named vote. I will call upon the monitoring officer to read that. We will begin with W, with Councillor Woodall. keep everyone on their toes. And as I say, please indicate whether you are for, against or abstaining. Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Woodall.
For.
Councillor Alan Williams. Councillor Tully.
Abstain.
Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Tillett.
For.
Councillor Thomas. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Swinglehurst. Councillor Stone. Councillor Stoddart. Councillor Stark.
Abstain.
Councillor Spencer. Councillor Simmons.
Abstain.
Councillor Proctor. Councillor Price. Councillor Ivan Powell. Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Pebbody. Councillor Owens. Councillor Oliver. Councillor O'Driscoll. Councillor Mason. Councillor Lester. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor James. Councillor Hercombe. Councillor Hitchner. Councillor Highfield. Councillor Heathfield. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Hamblin. Councillor Gennard. Councillor Gandy. Councillor Foxton. Councillor Fagan. Councillor Engel. Councillor Dykes. Councillor Durkin. Councillor Dave Davis. Councillor Claire Davis. Councillor Crockett. Councillor Cornthwaite. Councillor Cole. Councillor Carwadine. Councillor Bramer. Councillor Bolter. Councillor Biggs. Councillor Bartram. Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Andrews. Oh, you got your figures. Look.
35, 4, 15 abstain.
Thank you. We're so quick at counting. It's not fair. They're always quick at counting. Go on.
I can declare that the capital investment budget and capital strategy has been passed by 35 votes with 15 abstentions and no one against. Members, I am now going to suggest that we have a 10-minute comfort break and then we will return to set the revenue budget for the next year. Can we have the live stream please switched off? Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I just want to begin. Councillor Fagan, I understand that you need to declare an interest in the last debate we had on the capital programme.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and apologies, but I am actually a trustee of Lanrawn Village Hall, which is in receipt of the Community Buildings Grant. Thank you very much to that, but that is an interest I need to declare.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for that completeness. Very well then, we are now moving on to agenda item 10, which is to set the 2026-27 budget, also to deal with the medium-term financial strategy as well. And this is outlined on pages 267 to pages 520 before you today. I would remind you all that there will be a name vote at the end of this, and I would just alert all my group leaders that following the opening of the debate, I will turn to group leaders in turn. Well, they will have 5 minutes to speak before I open it to other speakers in the council. The mover of the motion, Councillor Stollard, will have 10 minutes in order to speak to set out this budget. Councillor Stollard.
Thank you, Chair. Our budget development process this year has been undertaken with the spectre of Fair Funding Review 2 hanging over us like the sword of Damocles. Since late autumn, we've conducted wide-ranging and regular briefings with group leaders and their political parties, the Scrutiny Management Board, businesses and members of the public. The draft revenue budget that is proposed for 26-27 totals £234.1 million and includes a 4.99% increase in council tax. This increases a Band D charge to £2,067.63, which represents an increase of £8.19 per month or £1.89 per week. We are aware that a number of residents may struggle with this increase, and our approval of the proposal in regards to continuing the council tax reduction scheme earlier in this meeting will seek to address this. Growth in Herefordshire's core spending power, as calculated by government, is expected to be funded entirely by local taxpayers via maximum annual increases in council tax as the Settlement Funding Assessment, or SFA, drops from £88.4 million this financial year to 84.1 in 26-27, 77.7 in 27-28, and then on to 71.1 in 28-29. This cumulative £17.3 million loss compounds the financial pressures already faced by the council following the abolition of the Rural Services Delivery Grant and Services Delivery Grant, which led to loss of funding of £7.1 million in 25-26. Assessments by the Rural Services Network indicates that urban councils are expected to receive around 32% more per head in government-funded spending power for 26-27. Rural residents will pay around 17% more in council tax compared to urban residents. By 28-29, urban authority spending power is expected to allow them to spend approximately £100 more per resident on services than most rural councils. And by 28-29, government funding spending power for the most urban authorities is expected to rise by 20% compared with 2% for rural councils. The outcome of the Fair Funding Review therefore has serious implications for Herefordshire Council's funding position and the delivery of services and the improvements to residents over the medium-term period. This is the real outcome of the Fair Funding Review for the residents of Herefordshire: a reduction in government funding and less resources to spend on services which benefit residents. However, I would like to draw your attention to the recent announcement by Birmingham City Council, a Labour-run local authority which was bankrupt, but which now states its financial position for 26-27 will be balanced, and its services are set for an additional £130 million of investment. And I think this shows the true impact of the Fair Funding Review, which is simply around moving funding from rural to urban authorities. The recent corporate peer review confirmed that Herefordshire Council is a good council that is striving hard to improve further, with strong financial stewardship, and this administration has chosen to take some tough but responsible decisions to balance the budget rather than opt for loans from government through the Exceptional Financial Support Framework. EFS is a form of temporary financial assistance to support a council to meet its financial obligations and continue to deliver essential services. At para 66 in the report, the process for EFS is explained. However, in simple terms, EFS is the equivalent of maximising your credit card, as it's only a short-term measure which will accrue interest and will require to be paid back to central government. A neighbouring county council has recently received £30 million of EFS this year and is applying for a further £70 million in 26-27, giving them a total debt of £100 million, which will be subjected to annual interest of approximately 5.9%, and which, unlike prudential borrowing for capital projects, which then provide an asset, EFS is a short-term fix that only enables services to be delivered on the never-never. I can confirm today that Herefordshire Council, unlike some other councils, will not be seeking a bailout or government loan or calling for 10% council tax increases. However, what we will do is take tough but responsible decisions to control costs, protect services and keep the council financially sustainable. The base budget proposed for 26-27 is summarised at para 65 in the report, with Directorate savings proposals detailed at Appendix B, with key revenue budget pressures, challenges and risks outlined in the individual Directorate budget position statements at Appendix C, which are new this year. The Community and Wellbeing budget for this year is £89.67 million, which is a reduction of £700,000 this year. Children and Young People's budget is 58.413 million, which is a reduction from this year of 460k. Economy and Environment is 38.291 million, a reduction from this year of 2.7 million. Corporate Services budget is 22.496 million, a small increase from this year of £274,000 due to increases in insurance premiums and banking charges. The central budget area is 25.253 million, an increase from this year of £6.2 million due to increased interest payments linked to the GSG effort and the capital programme. The key budget pressures for financial year 26-27 total £29.3 million and include the usual pay award, inflation and demand. This year, we have made the decision to deal with inflation differently through the establishment of the Contract Inflation Fund to be managed via our existing expenditure controls. Inflation is estimated at £7.1 million in contracts for expenditure on supplies, services and third-party payments, and it will not be allocated directly to services as an increase in Directorate-based budgets this year. The draft revenue budget also assumes funding of £3.2 million from the Business Rates Risk Reserve. I would now like to turn and address the issue of savings. Total savings of £20 million are proposed in the 26-27 budget, and these savings include a range of proposals to control costs of service delivery, increase income from fees and charges, manage demand for council services and high-cost demand-led budgets, deliver efficiencies through the review and transformation of services. Community Wellbeing will save £7.375 million, Children and Young People will have saved £3.348 million, Economy and Environment will save £7.204 million, and Corporate Services will save £2.027 million, a total of £19.954 million. I am, however, very pleased to confirm today that 35%, or £6.9 million of these savings, are estimated to be delivered on 1 April 2026. The final settlement from Government to confirm our final allocations for 26-27 was announced on Monday. Herefordshire Council has been allocated an additional £678,000 in revenue support grant, and as per recommendation J in the budget report, it is proposed that this additional funding is used to reduce the Business Rates Risk Reserve funding assumed in the revenue budget from £3.297 million to £2.619 million. The medium-term financial strategy is the Council's key financial planning document and sets out the Council's budget for 26-27 and the financial plan for the next 3 years out to 29-30. Table 1 of the report shows an estimated cumulative funding gap of £83.41 million over the medium-term financial planning period. I would like to highlight that this gap is not due to any action by Herefordshire Council. Rather, this gap is singly due to the impact of the Unfair Funding Review 2. However, Herefordshire Council has a statutory requirement to set a balanced budget for 27-28, and thus the gap of £20.571 million has to be addressed at that time. Therefore, when the 27-28 funding gap has been resolved as part of the budget setting process, the impact will be that the 28-29 expenditure reduces and the gap for 29-30 reduces approximately to a cumulative total of £21 million. We are fully aware that closing the estimated funding gap in future years will represent a significant challenge, and it will be the immediate focus for the financial staff from April 26 as part of the Council's future financial strategy. Turning now to the Treasury Manager Strategy at Appendix D, it has been prepared to comply with all relevant guidance and legislation. The borrowing strategy is that the Council borrows to fund capital expenditure, with borrowing driven by the requirements of the approved capital investment budget. The objective of the borrowing strategy is to manage the risk of current and potential future debt. The current loan debt of £135.5 million is detailed at Annex A. The objective of the investment strategy is to ensure prudence is applied and risks are managed when the Council holds surplus funds. As at 31 October 25, the Council had £55.74 million of investments spread across banks, other local authorities and money market funds. And the current investment portfolio is detailed at Annex A. Finally, the earmarked reserves at Appendix E show that our forecast reserves as at 31 March 26 will be £75.3 million. Earmarked reserves represent amounts set aside for future expenditure to support specific corporate priorities or for general contingencies and cash flow management. The general fund balance is not allocated or earmarked for a specific purpose, but represents a strategic reserve to be used in the event of a major incident or emergency. It is considered prudent to maintain a level of reserve balances commensurate with risk, and an assessment to confirm the adequacy and robustness of balances is undertaken annually by the Section 151 officer as part of the budget setting process. In conclusion, and bearing in mind the context of the wider poor economic situation that reminds us, I would like to remind Council that as a result of the robust management of the revenue budget and responsible stewardship of the Council's financial resources, Herefordshire Council is in a strong and resilient position to respond to and withstand future financial pressures. This strong financial position is evidenced through a deliverable balanced budget of £234.1 million, a medium-term financial strategy that shows while we have challenges ahead, we have a financial strategy to address this whilst we continue to manage financial risks and monitor reserves. And lastly, external assurance in respect of the Council's financial sustainability is confirmed in the Auditor's annual report for 24-25 with no significant weaknesses identified. This is a situation that many other local authorities would wish to find themselves in, and I have no hesitation in recommending this draft budget and request that Council approve all 8 recommendations, plus the approval for allocation if additional funding is received. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stollard. I'm aware that you went over, but it is a particularly significant setting of the budget. So I hope members will agree that it was probably right to give him his full time on this. Leader of the Council, do you want to speak now or later?
Is my 5-minute slot or
Yes.
as a seconder to the recommendation?
Both. We'll hear from you once.
Right, hear from me once. I'll speak at the end then.
Okay. Very well. I will now call upon the group leaders to speak. They have 5 minutes each, and they will be in the order of Councillor James, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Simmons, and Councillor Claire Davis. And then I will then open it up to debate. Councillor Harvey is waving at me.
Yes, I am. I think the Independents for Herefordshire and the Green Group have an equal number of...
H comes before S.
I thought it was in terms of the groups rather than the surnames of the councillors.
Oh, well, look. Okay, we'll switch you two round. I'll begin with Councillor James.
Thank you. I'll be relatively brief in this particular. Every year we get this debate, which is principally about the. Whilst we have the strategies can change as the days go by, and the months go by. I can congratulate our Ms Saunders on what I call a thorough and exhaustive report, which is one of the better ones I think I've seen over the years as far as being understandable is concerned. What we're here to do is to set the council tax rate. The strategy will change, changes over the years. We find ourselves in an impossible position with the removal of funding from the rural areas to the urban areas, and I think Councillor Stoddart highlighted the fact of what's happened in Birmingham, the sudden turnaround following this review of funding for local government. It is totally unfair. It assumes that it's cheaper to provide services in rural areas than in urban areas. That is not the case. And it was a political decision. And, you know, if people complain about the level of council tax, they need to point to the government, because that's what's happened. We've lost all that funding, and particularly revenue funding at the moment, when we were, I think some members were discussing potholes, which is not under the capital budget, but it's under the revenue budget. And there's going to be increasing pressure on that area of our services to the public. And as the councillor actually said, that is going to be felt by us as individual ward councillors, especially in rural areas, more than anything else, I think, in the coming years. It's hopeful that the new provider will provide a more efficient manner of providing, improving the pothole services. But we find ourselves where it's very difficult to find any reason why we cannot justify the level of council tax that we now have, because we've certainly had more than the increase taken away from us by central government. And we find ourselves in the position that we have to raise that council tax level to what it is as proposed in these papers. What we have to do, and there's a lack of concentration, I think, within the council, is on the efficiency of that services, and we've seen it in the public realm area, where we've found a very inefficient way of providing those services through the county as a whole, and the pothole repairs has been a classic example of local government inefficiency in providing that service. So on balance, I think we have to, as a whole, unless we want to find our services to the public and the vulnerable in our community, we have to support this particular resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Who's going to be next? Have you sorted it out? Okay, Councillor Simmons.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Green Group would like to take this opportunity to thank our Chief Financial Officer, her team, the corporate directors and staff who have worked so hard to try and deliver a balanced budget to us today. It's a near Herculean, and perhaps I should say Sisyphean task to achieve this, given the bleakness of savings required. The Green Group join in expressing our deep frustration at the government's entirely unfair funding settlement. The financial challenge facing this county is becoming insurmountable. It is not sustainable for government to rely on above inflation increases in council tax for the next 4 years to plug the real terms reduction in central funding. Whilst thanks to our prudent management of funds over the last 2 administrations, we are in a better position than our neighbours in what was Conservative-led Shropshire and now Reform-led Worcestershire, who have 10% increases proposed that they will be dealing with. The gap in central taxation funding becomes a yawning chasm by the end of the settlement period. It cannot be right that rural areas like ours, subject to a low-wage economy and geographical peripherality, continue to lose funding. This is on top of the specific Rural Services Delivery Grant that we have lost. This is having lasting, damaging effects on the most vulnerable in our county, the young, the old, and all those who most rely on our services. However, Given this backdrop, decisions on where cuts have to be made in the revenue budget for the next financial year and beyond have been made all the harder by this Conservative administration's folly on some capital projects. They insist on spending that they can't afford and that won't deliver the benefits they claim. For every 10 million the council borrows, the loan and interest repayment each year are £600,000 from the council tax revenue. This is over a 40-year term. Borrowing for capital projects, of which now nearly 40 million is for the road, will mean 2 million per year needs repaying from council tax. Just think what 2 million could be spent on, what cuts wouldn't have to be made, or possibly the increases to council tax wouldn't be needed. And so, where are these cuts in the revenue budget being made? Frontline services like Talk Community, who do fantastic work with our voluntary sector and health partners. Less money available to repair roads or maintain play areas or support those needing our housing. There is also less flexibility to try innovative measures that support everyone being able to move around our county. The Green Group have worked to try and ensure that the voices and needs of our young people are heard in this budget. It has been so disappointing that much of the past week has had to be spent simply trying to make sure that October's full council motion, which had majority support, is actually carried out. That motion called simply for a pilot scheme to extend bus travel for 16 to 19-year-olds to allow them to use their college passes, for which they already pay £1,000 a year, at evenings, weekends and during school holidays. Despite assurances at December's council papers that proposals would be prepared for the budget, we found out last week that the decision had been taken not to proceed due to cost pressures. If we're serious about tackling rural inequality and driving economic growth, then we have to support young people to access employment, training and social opportunities. Without that support, we risk leaving an entire generation cut off from the chances they deserve. There was clearly no political will or leadership from the Cabinet member in prioritising this in line with full council wishes, but I am very grateful that in discussion with officers, a feasibility study to deliver this will now be developed, even though council hasn't been updated to that effect. We were also pleased that following work from the Greens, 50,000 has been secured from the Extended Producer Responsibility for Packaging grant to help address roadside litter that blights our beautiful county. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those volunteers across our county who work to pick up the worst of it. Given the severe constraints of the funding environment, we as a group recognise there have been limited options in developing the budget before us today. And despite the concerns voiced, I will be voting for this balanced budget.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Independents for Herefordshire recognise the difficulties faced by the Council in putting together a balanced budget for the coming year. The way local government financing continues to be starved by whatever national party is presently in government makes it a distinct possibility that this may be the last year that this Council can just about balance the books. Even so, this budget proposes 20 million of recurrent savings and 10 million of non-recurrent savings, and doesn't even make visible the hole created by undelivered recurrent savings from previous years, which in this year's budget amounts to over 1.4 million and will be even higher next year. On this basis alone, we could actually be asking the question about whether we're presented with a truly balanced budget here today. I know council finances are difficult for members to get their heads around, but the level of non-recurrent savings means that a third of the savings proposed this year are going to need to be found from somewhere all over again next year, with few reserves to fall back on. Even more worryingly, the 3-year look ahead on council finances shows that the hole in future years' finances has grown from 4 million to 84 million in just 12 months. The council received the good news on Monday that the central government has agreed to cover 90% of the current deficit in the dedicated schools grant. This changes the immediate borrowing picture somewhat, but the Treasury Management Report shows the percentage of our cost of borrowing and debt repayment rising as a proportion of our net revenue from 10% in last financial year to 15% of our net revenue in 2 years' time. That's an increase of 50% over 5 years. So by then, £15 of every £100 of our net revenue will go on servicing borrowing and debt. For now, the Council is in a better place financially than our neighbours in Worcestershire and Shropshire, who have had to ask for exceptional funding support from government, alongside permission to increase their council tax demands by 9%. However, here in Herefordshire, we continue to experience a low-wage economy, a large proportion of our population in retirement and needing complex care support, high house prices, poor community infrastructure, low productivity, and a population with a poor match of employment skills to modern employer needs. Add to this serious water pollution problems, persistent flooding, and a frightening government-imposed housing growth target. So things are challenging. It's lucky we live in such a lovely looking part of the world as, for now, smelling the flowers and looking at the view still costs us nothing. But persistently increasing council tax to the maximum is simply not sustainable as a central government strategy or a local government inevitability, when for our county our residents are earning so much less than elsewhere and with little prospect of that picture improving any time soon. Eating ever more into what's left of our residents' disposable income with council tax rises can't go on indefinitely. There seems no choice again this year, but eventually the money in people's pockets will run out, and then what? What is disappointing to hear during scrutiny was that officers are not presently even tracking the increasing proportion that council tax represents in terms of our residents' average disposable income to inform decision making. The situation is serious because it's not just council funding that's in this mess. Our police and fire services have received poorer funding settlements than they need to maintain services. The Integrated Care Board, the system which commissions GP and other health services, has been forced to cut its operating costs by 50% in year and more in years to come. Local water supply and treatment infrastructure is inadequate to service the houses that already exist, let alone those foisted upon us for the future. And our electricity supply network is incapable of supplying the energy needed to run the current generation of electric car charging points, let alone anything more sophisticated. Most of the services and systems we have come to rely on in the last 80 years have been starved of funding, underinvested in, and weakened to a dangerous degree. Living within this budget and delivering on the challenging savings proposed will be a huge challenge for everyone inside the council and for those who work with us. We can't afford to waste a penny or a minute. The most useful thing that Independence for Herefordshire can do for now is to continue to challenge through scrutiny, audit and governance to ensure the best service outcomes for the funding available, while we look ahead and prepare for the opportunity to lead on making better choices for Herefordshire from 2027 onwards.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Well, listening to my colleagues, I think they have said everything that we would wish to say. There are a few things we disagree with. However, the Cabinet member has clearly articulated the impact of the Fair Funding Review on Herefordshire. This on top of the removal of the Rural Service Grant last year. We have before us a challenging financial outlook, facing reducing finance at a time of increasing demand and complexity of the need amongst our most vulnerable residents. We also recognise the challenges in meeting this demand at a time of delivering projected savings. We wish to acknowledge the hard work of Rachel Saunders and her team and Cabinet members. We support the budget and the recommendations. We shall be, of course, voting for this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'm now going to open the debate up to the members. I've got Councillor Gandhi has indicated, Councillor Kenyon, Councillor Stark, and Proctor and Price. I'll just stop there at the moment and let us get through that and then come back. Councillor Gandhi, then Councillor Kenyon.
Thank you. I think we all would agree that talk community is something that this council absolutely wants, needs, and will be continuing to support on a regular basis. But we have to accept that in the financial situation we are in at the present moment, all of our directorates have to look at themselves, and if we need to make a restructure, do so. We can't exclude anyone from that. The talk community was the core purpose of setting up talk community was to provide support, prevention and community resilience by working with residents, community groups and partners across Herefordshire, helping to reduce demand on statutory services and improve wellbeing outcomes. Talk community does not only work with elderly people, and our community doesn't only work with elderly people. We talk a lot about the frail and the elderly, but we need to be aware that there is a vast number of adults within the Community Wellbeing Directorate who are not elderly or frail. So the idea of what we're doing now is we will continue working with what was the original aim of Talk Community. We will continue to work with the homeless people. We will continue to support those who have an addiction, and we will continue to support families who are in difficulty, whether it be financially or a domestic abuse situation. But be aware that I am absolutely certain that going forward we will do everything in our power to ensure that as much of the statutory stuff that we were doing before and the work we were doing on prevention, which is the real reason the talk community was set up, will continue.
Thank you. Councillor Kenyon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a few things to be queries for me, really. In the Children and Young People's Directorate, the SENS efficiency transport, I made a little noise at the last meeting about taxis, fares and that sort of stuff, and one before that actually. And you brought a consultant in to look at savings. I can see you're looking at making 2 million this year in next year in savings. Is that going far enough on the budget? I think it was 13 or 14 million pounds. There are certainly lots of other ways that you can look at getting SENS children to school. Are they all being explored? That's one concern I've got. The car park rise in Hereford, you know, people aren't going to come to Hereford, they're going to stop coming. So it's almost like a fool's way of doing things, because if people stop coming, you're going to get less revenue. So it's almost at a point where if we put these fares up, people are going to go out of town shopping. It's going to be great for places in and around. Malvern are going to benefit from it. People are going to go to other places. So I'm disappointed by the raise in it. And the hop on, I did speak to the cabinet member, the hop in and, well, I've called it hop in and get a ticket, you get 30 minutes. What can you do in 30 minutes? You get caught in a queue at the post office, something like that. It would have been better if you've got 30 minutes free and then you could buy the next hour for a rate of an hourly rate, which would be an hour and a half. But that unfortunately fell on deaf ears. But I'd like to see some sort of review after 12 months of, we talk about footfall, let's talk about car fall. I know some people would enjoy less cars coming into the city, but that's how businesses run. You need people transported into the city, spending money in shops to keep those shops open and thriving. It could be the death of the city centre. And again, the Hereford bid, they've made plenty of noise about that, and they are the experts within the city. So that's the point I'd like to make. And my final one, we obviously have a duty of care for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. How do they end up in Herefordshire? And do we get any support from for those individuals from government? So we're looking at making a saving on it. We've got to make sure we look after these children and take care of them. But are we getting any support from government to look after these asylum-seeking children? Those are three observations. I will be supporting it. It's very well laid out. Those are 3 points that perhaps I should have brought before today, but they're points I want to make out in open at a meeting. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kenyon. Now I've got Councillor Stark, Councillor Proctor and Councillor Price. Anybody else? Councillor Hitchener, Councillor Premberdy, Woodhall and Swindlehurst, Jenner, Mason, and people are throwing names at me. I think that's enough at the time. And Tully. Okay, right. Let's start that long list then with Councillor Stark.
Thank you, Chair. Members will not be disappointed to know that I will be raising the revenue allocation on economy and environment again, as I do every year, because I think that's a key area of the department, of the council, in terms of that's the area where most residents get any sort of service from us. Can I say that this is probably the most difficult revenue budget that I've faced as a member in my 7 years? And I do want to congratulate the Section 151 officer and everyone else involved to even be able to put forward a budget like this. Can I also point out that something that we need to raise with government is that we have a low tax base in this council. That is an important aspect of the amount of core spending power we can realise when it comes to raising the precept. It's not surprising we're faced with a 4.99 because unlike many other councils, that 4.99 when translated into an absolute total is a lot less because our tax base at Band E level doesn't even amount to 75,000. However, there are some observations I need to make on the savings that have been offered in terms of economy and environment. The fourth financial risk in the report before us talks about potential overspends and non-delivery of savings. That's a concern for me because the Budget Resilience Reserve runs out by March 2027. That is the Budget Resilience Reserve that we've been using to try and mitigate the cost and demand pressures in community wellbeing. But when we look at the absolute savings that have been asked of the two directorates, they're almost the same. 7 million plus in community wellbeing and 7 million plus in economy and environment. Yet economy and environment savings represent nearly 80% of their base budget. The savings in community wellbeing only represents 8% of their base budget. That worries me, Chair, because that is putting a lot more pressure on economy and environment to be able to deliver those savings. They're not equal in that respect because I think it's much more difficult to achieve an 80% cut than an 8% cut. Councillor Harvey did talk about recurrent savings, and the 19 million is a balance of non-recurrent and recurrent savings because some grants have been used to actually sweeten the pill. But if we go forward from here, I really am concerned, Chair, that economy and environment are going to come under increasing pressure if they can't deliver the savings that they've got to deliver this year and having to try and deliver savings that will be forced upon them in the future. I really do think these savings need to be reviewed again, Chair, and to ensure us as members that they are achievable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor.
Thank you. I'd just like to pick up on 2 points which have already been raised in the debate. The first is the substantial level of risk in the medium term that the council is now carrying, and I'm sure everybody is aware of it. But as has been discussed, we know for sure that we are carrying forward savings that need to be made for next year because we're mitigating some costs out of reserves this year. And if we don't make all of the recurrent savings this year, those will roll forward into future years, and that will have a compounding effect. And I think it is the responsibility of all councillors to do what we can to assist the executive to mitigate those risks. Obviously, SMB and the other scrutiny committees will play a key role in that, but we should not miss any opportunity to work with the executive on these points. SMB made some recommendations, and I and other members, I think, were initially disappointed by the written response to the recommendations, but the debate at Cabinet made me think that actually the Cabinet has taken has engaged with those, and I hope that that positive engagement will carry through in this highly risky period that we're working in. And that leads me to the second point, which is, in order to navigate through this area, we need to think about doing things really very differently. The council is behind the curve in terms of its investment in digital data technology, in terms of transforming its services, but also it has a habit, and I don't want to bring up car parking again, of making decisions and then announcing them to the county rather than working with the county. We will not stand any chance of getting through this process unless we see ourselves as part. The we is Herefordshire, not we Herefordshire Council. And so I really hope that the executive will take that on board and that all members will assist in supporting the executive to move to new ways of doing business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you, Leader, or Chairman, Chair, or rather, to get it right. A number of things have been mentioned during the course of today's debate about how bad the things are, and I have to say that over the last 3 or 4 months, when I've been working with Rachel Sanders and her team and Councillor Storrett and the Cabinet, it has probably been one of the most difficult budgets to ever arrive at a solution. I can remember days when we were banging our heads together as to how we were going to deal with tens of millions of pounds of savings. It has been a real battle, and you know, you can't go on spending on a credit card. You have to deal with these things. So there appears to be people in the room that think that the youth of this county is their particular prerogative. I will remind a few people that back in 2008, when I was the Cabinet Member for Education, I met with all Year 11 children at the Art College about what they wanted in 2020, which is now 6 years past. And after an afternoon of hundreds and hundreds of ideas from all of the children in Hereford at Year 11, what they wanted was a university in Hereford, which has now come to being. Most of those would never have had the opportunity to go to it because they were too old, even though they were only in Year 11. So I hear about the send taxes, we're dealing with it. I hear about the pilot scheme for 16 to 19-year-olds, but at some place, we have to put a little bit of reality onto it. But fundamentally, as a Cabinet Member for Infrastructure, if you go back for the history of the Rotherham Enterprise Zone, you will start to realise that the forward-thinking people have now given 6,000 people jobs in this county. And that infrastructure that was put in place then and is now giving us business rates that we are now talking about how we spend it in this budget, you start to see that you have to plan for the future. It is not about credit card spending today. So I'm absolutely in support of this. I hope everybody will be in support of it. You cannot really abstain. This is the result of months of work to try to get a budget together that is going to function for the sustainability and the future of the young of this county. Cheers.
Thank you. Now I've got Councillor Hitchner, Councillor Pemberley, Councillor Woodall, Councillor Swindlehurst, Councillor Jennard, Councillor Mason, Councillor Tully. So we'll begin that list with Councillor Hitchner.
Thank you, Chair. As has been pointed out many times, the budget process has been very difficult, and I congratulate officers and the administration for grasping the nettle to ensure that there is a balanced budget. This is a much better outcome than other authorities who've chosen to go to the government for a bailout, which is just deferring the pain for another year. This proposed budget is a much better course of action. We did so in the last administration when savings were also required, although not at the level required this time. We didn't quite get as far as banging heads together, which Councillor Price suggested. Difficult political decisions have to be made at these times. The savings required in 2027-28, the year after the next election, are projected to be another 20 million. It is a good thing that officers are already preparing for these savings, but it would not be an easy task. There is a lot of work to be done to enable the Council to deliver the figures, and I do hope the Council will achieve them. Most of our expenses are on statutory services. I congratulate the Children's Directorate for achieving a good Ofsted rating, but ratings in themselves are not so very important as the real life impact of the service is having on children. I believe there is a real change. This includes a permanent workforce committed to the children in our care, achieved by good leadership and senior management. Thank you. We must not let our work in this area slip by making savings which have not been thought through. This will be especially challenging in 2027-28. Adult Social Services has accepted a huge saving target. Partnership working is so important in this area. I urge the service to negotiate sensibly with providers. If costs have to be saved, these are best achieved by making arrangements that the partner can live with and continue to operate profitably, and if necessary accept a lesser service. There is a flip side to making savings, which is that services will suffer. You may say that I'm being negative, but this is the reality. A criticism I have of the budget is that the numbers are all there, but the details of services affected and the effect on people is not clear and transparent enough. I was pleased to hear Councillor Gandhi acknowledging the difficulties in the Talk community area and that services will be affected. Some of these aspects seem to have been sold a little bit as good news. As an example, I think it is mischievous for the administration to announce 30 minutes of free parking and then make a separate later announcement that parking charges to rise by up to 10%. The latter most likely having a greater negative effect. This may be clever politics, but is not the right way to communicate with residents. I also note that proposals to capitalise costs in the finance and legal teams, which I assume were historically treated as revenue expenses. This is on page 312. This was a practice adopted in the later days of the business that occupied this building. I was uncomfortable with that practice at that time, and I remain so. I have had assurances from the Section 151 officer that this activity is in accordance with the required standards and that the auditors will look at this as part of their work. Finally, just a question for Councillor Stoddart. He mentioned the level of reserves on page 369. The level of reserves on the 31st of March 25 were 90.8 million and they're projected to be 51.7 million. That's a drop of nearly 40 million in the space of 2 years. He suggests that we are well prepared for the future. I think that is potentially a problem there. Thank you.
Can I just remind everybody that you have got a maximum of 3 minutes, but please do try and observe that. I currently have 45 minutes left in this debate. So at this stage, I've got I've added Councillor Crockett, Tillett and Hercombe, and I'm probably going to then bring back the leader of the council and the proposer of the motion and end the debate. I appreciate it is a very important subject we're discussing, but I do think another 45 minutes we will probably do with that. So if everyone's in that agreement, we'll now go to Councillor Pembury.
We have a duty to maintain our public rights of way network, which benefits the local economy, public health and community engagement. The £250,000 fund for PROW, maintained in the budget for next year, was oversubscribed this year. 49 of our 137 parish councils receive no funding through this scheme. How can we fulfil our statutory duty when we can't meet requests for essential repairs and maintenance? And if we assume that not all parish councils will apply to this fund, does this mean that no one is taking responsibility for the PROW network?
Thank you. Councillor Woodall.
Thank you. The £7 million contract inflation fund is a very wise approach for mitigating contract costs overruns, which are out of our hands. However, it may be tempting to use this fund to top up the ambitious high-risk capital projects championed by this administration. I do hope that it does not get disproportionately used for funding shortfalls in the proposed road building project. This funding mechanism is also intended to increase challenge and transparency over the contract expenditure. So I will be expecting to see any applications to this fund to come under scrutiny by the appropriate bodies.
Thank you. And next is Councillor Swindlehurst.
Thank you, Chair. The annual job of budget setting has been, I have to say, an entirely mirthless and miserable process this year. Somehow, Councillor Stoddart and the 151 officer have kept resolutely upbeat with a sort of blitz spirit that is reminiscent of Monty Python's Black Knight. Ever since I was ever since I was first elected in 2015, we have been expected to control public spending, and by and large, I agree that profligacy is not something to be encouraged with public money. I'm all in favour of a lean organisation, but there's a difference between lean and starving. Everything apart from the basic statutory services is being squeezed because of the utter iniquity of the Labour government's fair funding settlement. The government boasts of increased funding, but there has been a massive redistribution of funding from rural to urban authorities. For instance, Labour-controlled Birmingham City Council, which was bankrupt not so long ago, is now able to boast of increased public spending of 130 million. This is because the government have given them 300 million, while we are expected to manage with less. The Guardian reported that Middlesbrough, Manchester and Birmingham will see some of the biggest increases in spending power from April, and that outer London boroughs such as Haringey and Newham also benefit. Coincidentally, all Labour-controlled councils. While, according to The Guardian, the losers include wealthier central London boroughs, including Kensington and Chelsea, and affluent, home countries commuter belt councils such as Surrey. I'm not sure I would describe Herefordshire as an affluent home county commuter belt, and yet here we are. According to the Independent County Council Network, the 3-year settlement will be extremely challenging and will leave many of member councils facing a substantial funding shortfall over the course of this Parliament. It is simply unrealistic to expect them to provide vital care services while receiving deep reductions in government grant, and more councils may now have to apply for exceptional financial support. But unrealistic or not, we are expected to provide those vital care services, and the demand and costs are rising. The County Council Network is right. More and more councils are having to take an emergency loan to keep the lights on, and it will be at a punitive interest rate. So make no mistake, it's not a panacea. It does pave the way for an above-referendum increase in council tax, though, with some authorities looking at double-digit increases. There comes a point where doing more with less is no longer a challenge, it's a depressing struggle. I can only ask that we are kind to the officers who will have to bear the brunt of this, and that we do what we can to explain to residents who may well wonder why their council tax is going up. Compared with many authorities, Herefordshire manages the pressures well. We do not need exceptional financial support, and we are able to continue to invest in the services our residents value and in the capital projects that are a down payment on the county's future. This is due to strong fiscal discipline and to taking difficult decisions time and again. It would be nice, for once, not to have to do that, but we are not here to do the easy thing. We are here to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gennard.
Thank you. I would like to speak about the process surrounding the proposed changes to parking charges. I know other councillors in the room have mentioned the parking charges in Hereford and the wider county. It's not simply about parking, it's about how we make decisions and who we consult with to make them. From what I can see, there appears to have been a limited impact assessment undertaken before bringing these changes forward. We are talking about decisions that directly affect residents, small businesses, city centre vitality and actually public trust. That requires robust analysis and clear evidence. It feels too many that the council are giving with one hand by offering a small amount of free parking, but then taking away with the other by increasing charges for subsequent parking hours. We speak about supporting the city centre and encouraging footfall, yet increase costs that may deter exactly that. I know that visitors to Hereford and those with businesses in the city welcome the addition of the extra half hour of on-street parking in Hereford following concerns raised by Hereford Bid, among others. That shows that when pressure is applied, flexibility is possible. However, it also highlights that this proposal may not have been fully thought through in the first place. I would urge that we pause and properly assess the full impact of these changes, engage with those affected, and ensure our decisions align with our stated commitment to supporting Hereford's economy and communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you. I'll not argue that central government funding is a main problem here, and I'll commend work by officers and various lobbying groups against this unfair funding. And I'll commend efforts by officers and Cabinet in finding savings, just as others have made those acknowledgements. It's never easy, even in a corporate environment, and so to find savings in a political one is more challenging still. But I've been clear in my mind for a few years now that we can't continue to increase the council tax by the maximum amount, however much that might feel the first step to addressing the gap caused by central government. In the last 10 years, and it doesn't really matter how far back you go, the council tax burden has gone up by more than twice the increase in earnings. As a matter of simple logic, let alone economics, that cannot continue. Of course, the total burden for taxpayers in their council tax bill will be more than 5%. As everyone in this room knows, that bill is not just us, and I see parishes putting on 20% increases year on year to reflect their concerns that we will cut services essential to their residents. A sobering observation, for many in the county, even those broadly around median earnings, their council tax bill is comparable to, or more than, their income tax. We've heard references to digital data transformation. All these are tricky but necessary exercises in changing how we deliver services within a budget. And I understand the issues with demand-led and statutory services. But if anyone thinks this organisation is efficient, they're deluding themselves. We need focus and more hard work to carry on changing that course. Thinking back to the capital budget, I'm glad to see works that use capital investment to reduce revenue liabilities. And I acknowledge that revenue spend can be vital in growing our economy. I think obviously of how we can improve our tourism revenue, for example. But the administration and officers need to set a plan that sets a trajectory for council tax that is below earnings growth. And until then, I shall not vote for the revenue budget.
Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with Councillor James that there are political decisions behind our choices and we need to point to the government. Yes, I'm pointing to an ideological shift that started 16 years ago, presided over 3 different parties. National cuts to local councils started years ago, and yes, the most recent loss being 2 of the ways that we had here of managing our very rural service delivery. I'm delighted to see the continuation of the Talk Community model. As other services are cut, it's becoming clear that they are the connectors that we need in the face of so many other gaps in services, including housing and health. They bring efficiency and they work magic in getting joined up action, which in turn will save and does save revenue costs. We do lack detail here in terms of some of the restructure. I'd like to see how young people will be supported universally and appropriately when this is moved across into children's and young people's services. We will continue to work to support all young people to get the right support to get on in life. Around young people, the budget consultation returned responses from 2% of young people. I work out that as about 7 people. 7 people of about 30,000 young residents asked what they would choose if they only had £1 left to spend. I echo what Councillor Stark said about consultation. We are connected. Everyone in this room is connected to, I suspect, many, many more than 7 young people between us. Use us, listen to us. We ourselves were glad to have had confirmation from officers that the feasibility work is possible to inch us towards what full council agreed back in October. A well-evaluated pilot is what we want, extending the 16 to 19 bus pass, and that would have a positive impact now, with no impact on future years' revenue budgets. Plus, allow us to show the evidence needed to bring more funding in for innovative projects. Thank you to everyone who's helped to make that happen. This has my support.
Thank you. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Chairman. I refer members to Appendix H of the agenda item. This is the Equality Impact Assessment. My concerns regarding the savings proposal, especially for the Community Wellbeing Directorate, was highlighted by myself at the last Scrutiny Management Board meeting. This was especially in regard to the impact screening and assessment processes. I thank the Director for Community Wellbeing for reviewing this and addressing any shortfalls in the amended assessment documents. Sadly, I still have concerns on any potential accumulative effect of these proposals to the residents. Therefore, I would welcome future briefings from the Director and Cabinet Member to offer reassurance on how these savings proposals progress.
Thank you. Councillor Tillett and then Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair. From my recently elevated position in which I now sit, I will make this point a little more gently than if I was in my usual place over there, but make this point I will and must. Several references have already been made to the recent unexpected surprise announcements about car parking in the city. These were announced, as members will know, just very recently at Cabinet, and at the same time a rather unformed and rather frail-looking baby rabbit was pulled out of the hat with the pop to shop half hour, which the councillors already had to row back and extend to on-street parking, and also enjoy the leader's robust Thatcherite no, no, no in terms of similar charges in the market towns. There are 14 members of this council that represent wards in the city. Were we even warned of this, let alone consulted? No. Was the city council warned or consulted? No. And above all, Hereford Bid, which represents over 500 businesses in the city, was there any consultation? None whatsoever. This is not the way to proceed when you're going to introduce double-digit percentage increases in car parking at the 11th hour with all the ramifications that it will have on the economic welfare of the city. As you will have seen, the Bid are mightily vexed, as indeed are many of us, and are conducting a robust programme to get these charges altered. I merely make the point that particularly for a minority administration, this really isn't the way to proceed on something as contentious as this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Hercombe.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the free parking point, it should come as no surprise to those of us that bother to read election literature that when you make a pledge, you stick to it. That's what we've done. We made the pledge in May 23. We've delivered it when we're financially able to do so this year. I would also like to welcome the commitment of this administration to continue the parish council grant schemes, which have delivered untold benefit to the public realm. They allow for local priorities to be addressed by local contractors and often at a fraction of the cost of using Balfour Beatty. I also welcome the commitment to include the expanded flood risk team in the economy and environment-based budget. The wettest January on record is evidence that this decision was a smart one. On public rights of way, I do acknowledge that there have been historic difficulties which stretch back across multiple administrations, and I'm sure Councillor Harvey will tell you of the struggle of bringing those services back in from Balfour Beatty. It's never been an easy journey, and hopefully we're starting to see the sunlit uplands. On the question of statutory duty, our statutory duty is to provide 25% of the cost towards the replacement of stiles and gates, the remaining cost to be shared with the landowner. What we actually do at the moment is provide 100% because we recognise that often landowners are unwilling to do the work, and we need to step in and improve our public spaces, and that can include gates which allow for those that are less mobile to access the countryside. The council's duty is to maintain the service of the network, deal with upgrowth, and invest in and replace those assets which belong to the council, including bridges and waymarkers. In 24-25, the total allocated under the grant scheme was 177,000. We refused no applications. In 2025-26, the total was 260,000. Again, we refused no applications. We have at present turned down zero. We found money where applications have exceeded available funds, and we will continue to do so where we can. What we have noticed is that a number of parish councils have applied for quite large grants and then been unable to deliver, and so money has become tied up in the system. What we will look at doing in next year's grant is to limit the amount each council can apply for at any one time to enable it to be as fair as possible for all parishes. To ensure we meet all of our obligations and invest in the network, we've doubled the size of the inspector team as part of the recent public realm restructure. We've set up a framework for delivering work via the Lensman, included provisions for work in the new public realm contract, which could be delivered by M Group at a fixed rate. We've also allocated £1 million to the bridge replacement programme. We will keep trying to help parishes recruit PFOs in the no and black spots, but please rest assured defects in these areas will be picked up and addressed by the expanded inspector team. I know Councillor Pebley and Councillor Highfield have worked incredibly hard on in the last 12 months to try and address some of the failings across that service, but we are starting to turn a corner, and I do thank them for their support in that.
Thank you. Right, I'm bringing this debate to a conclusion now. The Leader of the Council has still yet to exercise his 5 minutes, so he has 5 minutes to speak now, and then I will return to Councillor Stollard, who also has 5 minutes, and then that will be it. No, there will be no other debate because, to be fair, I'm conscious of time as well. Leader.
Well, first of all, thank you to all members that have contributed to this debate today, and lots of very sound and wise things have been said, and I really appreciate the fact that across the political spectrum there has been solidarity with regard to the fact that this budget has been created due to a lack of fair funding, and I really appreciate those sentiments, and yes, as I say, it's really appreciated. One thing I would say is I'm extremely proud of Councillor Stoddard for all of his work as a councillor doing the finances, not just this year, but since we formed an administration in 2023. What an impossible task when there are such financial challenges to local government, and he has been calm, resolute, optimistic, and he has really stood the test of time and been shown that resilience that you need in that role, and he also managed to bounce back from a serious operation in the process. I mean, what more could you ask of a councillor? It just goes to show the advantages of a bypass. But I would also like to thank our Chief Executive, our 151 officer, and a whole host of officers who've worked extremely hard in contemplating the almost impossible, and for taking all councillors through a process of consultation, be it group consultations, be it scrutiny, to ensure that everybody can assess the gravity of the situation that confronts local government funding and how robustly we have responded to that challenge. So today we consider a budget that represents months of rigorous analysis and planning and responsible stewardship. This proposal before us presents a roadmap for stability, a framework for resilience, and a statement of the Council's continued commitment to sound financial management. This budget is a budget that is, I value its clarity. It sets out in transparent detail the pressures we face, the rising demand for adults and children's social care. The government assigns which unaccompanied asylum seekers we receive, and there is funding to accommodate them. But, you know, it is a challenge to make sure that that funding that we get is enough to sufficiently deal with the challenges that presents, especially in a rural area like ourselves, where certain resources are not as abundant as they are in urban areas. So we also have the challenge of delivering services in a rural area. So this budget does not minimise these challenges nor obscure them, and it produces a balanced budget that is honest about the scale of the task and realistic about the strategies required. You know, this budget demonstrates financial and fiscal responsibility despite a £17.3 million reduction in central government funding. And to carry on Councillor Swinglehurst's reference to Monty Python, it is not a mere scratch. It is losing an arm and a leg in local government funding, but we are carrying on regardless. So in contrast to neighbouring councils who have been given permission to raise council tax by up to 8.99%, our budget proposes 4.99%. This is to ensure that we protect those key services whilst also achieving those savings of £20 million that will be necessary. Reference was made to the fact that the last two administrations have been financially prudent. In 2019, when I was leader before, in February 2019, when my daughter was 3 days old, I took a budget forward and it left us in an extremely financial financially strong position, and it just goes to show that sound financial management in Herefordshire has been a long-running theme. So this budget before us presents huge challenges. That is because of the financial situation we face. But in short, this is an ambitious budget because it has to be. It is focused on the delivery of services because that's what we want it to be. And yes, the budget presents a huge challenge, but given what's at stake, this is a challenge that I think we should all readily accept. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I'll call on Councillor Stollard to close the debate. Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Leader for his very kind words. I'd also like to thank all members present for their kind interest and kind words to help me get through the, I have to say, the pretty dark times, the last 2 years of cancer followed by a triple bypass. But I do think that I would like to go on record as saying it does show that the value of the NHS. I think it's something that we as British citizens should be very proud of, that it's something that the rest of the world don't have. And I think it can be knocked very badly, and it can be knocked, and people say it doesn't work. It does work. We just have to work with it. What I would like to do, just to finish off my 5 minutes, is to address a number of councillors we've gone through to hopefully correct some points as we go through. Councillor Woodall, you mentioned the contract inflation fund. It will not be subject to scrutiny because it will be subject to internal controls. It's part of the cost. It's part of the cost board control mechanisms. Councillor Harvey, you mentioned the MTFS gap. I can definitely assure you that that gap from 4 million to 84 million is caused by fair funding review. Nothing else. It's down to that. Councillor Kenyon, you talked about the homeschool transport. It's £500,000 this year. It'll be £2 million next year, and we're targeting the top 10 taxi journeys. Overall, it's £13 million, which we have to address, and that will be looked at under a number of other measures. But one of the things we're looking at is a Hoople-operated bus service using optimised AI software that will ensure that buses get the best routes possible we can do. But we have to drive that cost down, as Councillor Kenyon said. And lastly, Councillor Mason, council tax. The only way we can achieve core interest in core spending, which although it's reducing by £17.3 million over the next 4 years, we still have to get that. The only way we can get that is by having 4.99% increase in our council tax rates. The previous MTFS showed this administration wanted to leave it at 3.99%, but last year we had to increase it because of the reduction in the Rural Services Grant. I would also like to say that's part of the assessment process for Fair Funding Review 2. Central government stated that the basic rate that every council, every D-band home in the country should set is £2,200, which would be another £1,500 per household. We have retained our setting at £2,069. So that's another reason for the gap in our funding, because central government have said that's what we should be doing. Other than that, I have to say, I think this is as the leader said, this is an honest, transparent budget. It's not what we'd love to have set. However, it is the reality of what we have to set. And I thank you all for all of the work that Rachel's team have done, but also everyone in this room. We have all worked together. I think it shows that we're doing a budget for Herefordshire by Herefordshire's councillors, and sometimes I think, as Councillor Simmons has said, we have to have those bitter lemon pills we have to take, and that's where we have to go forward as we go forward. But I think we do it as a group of councillors together. And I hope that you will be able to support us and vote for this budget. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Stollard. I'd repeat what's been said about you personally, and I think on behalf of all these members, I would very much like to thank our 151 officer and her finance team for the work that they've done. And I know, Rachel, that you will send that back to them because it is very much valued and appreciated. And I do think, if I'm allowed to say as chair, I do think it is our responsibility to go back to our communities and make them aware of what this fair funding review has meant to Herefordshire. I think that's very important. The redistribution of government funding from rural to urban is undeniable, and it has caused us a very difficult year this year and also in the future as well. And I know that we have been working with both our MPs, but I do think, and when Councillor Engel is at those parish council meetings, that is the message that's got to be clearly understood. It puts us in an extremely difficult situation. And I draw your attention, as I would probably, of the Rural Services Network's graphs on pages 272 and 273, which, if pictures speak louder than words, they certainly do. So let us move then to the recommendations there. Recommendations from A to H are printed before you in your papers. This will be a name vote, and we will begin with A. Monitoring Officer.
Thank you. If you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Thank you. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Bartram. Councillor Biggs. Councillor Bolter. Councillor Bramer. Councillor Carwardine. Councillor Cole. Councillor Cornthwaite. Councillor Crockett. Councillor Claire Davis. Councillor Dave Davis. Councillor Durkin. Councillor Dykes. Councillor Engel. Councillor Fagan. Councillor Foxton. Councillor Gandy. Councillor Jennard. Councillor Hamblin. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Heathfield. Councillor Highfield. Councillor Hitchner. Councillor Hercombe. Councillor James. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Lester. Councillor Mason. Councillor O'Driscoll. Councillor Oliver. Councillor Owens. Councillor Pebbody. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Ivan Powell. Councillor Price. Councillor Proctor. Councillor Simmons. Councillor Spencer. Councillor Stark. Councillor Stoddart. Councillor Stone. Councillor Swinglehurst. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Tillett. Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Tully. Councillor Alan Williams. Councillor Woodall.
Two abstentions. One against, one abstention.
Council, that has been passed with one abstention and one voting against. Otherwise, it has been passed with a big majority. Thank you all very much for your attendance for that. Can I now turn you on to the final items on the agenda? Item 11 is the pay policy statement for 2026-27 at pages 521 to 534. You will know that this is a statutory requirement of all public organisations to actually demonstrate these papers, what their pay policy statement is according to national guidelines, and those of you that belong to other public organisations will know that they have to do that too. I will call upon the chair of the employment panel, the leader of the council, to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the Council is required to agree and publish a pay policy statement each year. The Employment Panel have met to consider the pay policy statement and are recommending it to Council for approval. As a reminder, this document is a statement of what is already in place and does not change how we pay our employees. The report also includes references to equal pay and the gender pay gap, which are different measures. Equal pay ensures that men and women are paid the same for the work of equal value, and the gender pay gap reflects the overall spread of men and women across the pay structure. So there are no significant changes to the pay policy statement since it was approved by Council last year, and no one will get a pay increase as a result of agreeing this statement, but it's just, as I say, to agree the policy. So I would propose that we accept the pay policy that's been put before you. Thank you.
Seconder, please. Yes, seconded, Councillor James. I'm going to move straight to the vote as it's straightforward. Got Councillor Bartlett and Councillor Harvey. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things in sections 5 and 6, which is the relationship between the chief executive salary and the lowest paid, and I'm very pleased to see that we're steadily improving. Now we're 1.703. What I wanted to look at was the gender pay gap, because whilst you say there hasn't been very much change since last year, our gender pay gap is now at 5.55%, which has decreased significantly since the previous year of 10.4. So whilst it's good, it leaves me with a couple of questions about how we got there. I mean, clearly we've done a lot of reorganising in the way that we structure our staff and what services that we provide. So we do know that we're working very closely with Hoople and Balfour Beatty, with our partners. Are we improving because we're improving our pay, or are we improving because we don't have as many low-paid jobs as we used to? And where have they gone? So my worry is when I look at a partner like Hoople that still has a gender pay gap of 15.2, and Balfour Beatty isn't even there, I have to wonder, is it because we don't tend to do a lot of the caring and cleaning jobs anymore that we used to? And then are our partners doing them for us? So in a way, are we outsourcing our low paid jobs? And you know, to me, I appreciate what we're doing, but I would certainly ask the leader, you know, can we assure ourselves that we are doing everything that we can to encourage our partners to close their pay gap, their gender gaps as well?
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, I'd just like to thank officers for the additional information that to do with explaining the distribution of male and female employees across our grades, which was included following the employment panel meeting. I still think it would have been helpful to have had the footnotes associated with the pay grades numbered in order of the sequence in which they are presented in the table, which I think was something else that was suggested in the meeting, which doesn't seem to have made it through to the final document, but that's a very minor point. But I think those paragraphs of additional information just help to explain things fractionally, and I think that's all to the good.
Thank you. Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those comments. The gender pay gap, it's a representation of 20. Is that? Oh, that's better. Yeah. It's a representation of 2024, which is a snapshot, and the figure changes constantly as staff change with regard to recruitment and retention. So the explanation is that the workforce is predominantly female, and so you have the gender. Yeah. Right, it keeps going on and off, so apologies for that. So this is because men are disproportionately underrepresented in low-paid roles and more concentrated in higher paid grades. As a I will get there. As a result, the median hourly rate for men is higher than for women, and that produces in 2024 a pay gap of 5.5% in 2024. That is better than the national picture, but in order to address this problem, and I've highlighted one of the reasons why, then I look to all members for their suggestions as how we could improve this and reduce that gap as a council. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well. I'll move to the recommendation that the policy statement in Appendix A is approved for publication. I'll take a hand vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. No one against it? No. Thank you very much for that. That only remains me to give the closing remarks. I'd like to thank you all very much for your patience today through this very important meeting. I'd remind you that the next council meeting will be on Friday the 6th of March, and the purpose, one of the main purposes of that meeting is to set the precepts for 2026 for both our own organisations and the other public services as well. Thank you all very much for your attendance, and a safe journey home to you all. I declare the meeting closed.